Welcome everyone, Questin here with my gearing guide for the Protection Paladin in World of Warcraft Burning Crusade Classic for Phase 1. So that's Karazhan, Gruul, and Macfadden Tier 4. And when we're talking about gearing, the first thing I want to mention is what should your gearing priorities be about. And from my perspective, based on everything that I've seen in the beta thus far, especially for heroic dungeons and for raiding, survivability is a bigger concern than threat. That's not to say that threat is a non-issue whatsoever, but you don't really need an extreme amount of spell power. 200, 300 or so will be more than fine to keep aggro against any kind of DPSer at the start of the Burning Crusade. Once people get gear, once people get tier 4 gearing, once they get their weapons, once they get their crafted gear, then it will absolutely become an issue. But initially, you shouldn't worry too much about it. And if you do worry about it, it's a far better trade-off to go for threat with consumables rather than with your gear. You lose quite a lot if you drop survivability for spell power in terms of your gear. There's many bad trade-offs when it comes to changing your gear to get that higher spell power. Whereas with consumables, you have some pretty decent trade-offs, be it using mana potions, dark runes on cooldowns, destruction potions, or getting yourself in a shaman group where the shaman is going to use the spell power totem, or maybe using a shadow priest. Or an example I can give is Flask of Fortification versus Flask of Blinding Light. So 500 HP versus 80 spell power. Why is this a good trade-off? Well, because Flask of Fortification is just a raw HP value, which doesn't stack with your talents, which give you extra stamina, 16% extra stamina to be specific from talents, nor with Kings, 10% extra stamina. So you're looking at, between talents and Kings, 26% extra stamina. But it's stamina, it's not HP. So you don't really gain more than that. Whereas with gems, with gear in general, with high stamina gear, you gain quite a lot. You scale very well with stamina, though it's also worth saying you do start with the lowest HP and survivability of any tank in the game, especially on the Horde side, where you're probably going to be competing against Tauren warriors, and especially Tauren druids. So that's a concern that you do have as a paladin. You start out in a really weak position survival-wise, but you do scale very well with gear, if you make the right gearing decisions. But it's not really just a question about stamina, because you have other things you have to care about. As a protection paladin, here are your gearing priorities. Crit immunity, which requires 490 defense. You can get away with less if you have resilience on certain pieces of gear. Might be recommended to go for some of those pieces, at least early on, if you're struggling with the defense cap. Then Crush Cap, which requires 102.4% avoidance, but only 67.07% of that is from either your base avoidance or your gear, because you gain 35.33% from Holy Shield with Librum of Repentance. Then once you have achieved both the crit cap and the crush cap, and this matters whether or not you're boss tanking or AoE tanking, being able to avoid a hit, ensuring it's a miss, dodge, parry, or block from even trash mobs is important. It's a significant damage reduction. Obviously not quite as important as for boss tanking, but you ideally want to aim for that, because if you aim for that, then you can do pretty much all of Karazhan with the exception of Netherspite as a solo tank, especially once you get tier 4 pieces. So that's an important fact to understand as a pally tank. Then once you have that effective health, where stamina is more important than armor. Armor is obviously an important stat, but you do scale very well with stamina, so you should aim for that more than with armor. Then threat. And the only stat you should care about when it comes to your threat is spell power. Some people would think, oh, spell crit or spell hit. No, you shouldn't aim for either of those stats, because there are abilities which won't scale with them, where it won't have an impact, like Consecration. So if you're increasing your threat, you always aim for spell power. So starting with pre-raid gearing, I feel it's important to have a cheap pre-raid gearing option as a prop paladin. You don't have the luxury that other people do where they can get tier 3, especially in pre-patch, and use that to clear Karazhan. You are not in that position. Warrior tanks are in that position, DPSers, healers are in that position, or they have maybe a couple of items that they want. You absolutely aren't in that position. You have to build a gear set from scratch. Maybe there's 1 or 2 items that you can use from vanilla that are strong enough, but for the most part, you are going to build from scratch. And because many people will want to do Karazhan very quickly, as in you can get Karazhan attuned in a couple of hours after you reach 70, and then there's no reason whatsoever if you have a fully tier 3 geared raid. If you're in that position, you want to get as much gear as possible in the quickest time possible, and this is the kind of gear set that would help you achieve that. Some of these items are reputation based, some of these are quest based. Quest items are bracers, belt, Andormus tier, and boots. 3 of these are associated with dungeons that you have to do for the sake of the Karazhan attunement. Like the belt is the Arcatraz key quest, the bracers are Shadow Labyrinth normal, the ring is Black Morass, which is the final step of the Karazhan attunement, the boots are Manitombs normal, which you'll be doing while leveling. And then you have reputation items, Continuum Blade, Strength of the Continuum Blade, which is Keepers of Time, Revered, Strength of Untamed from Cenarian Expedition, Revered, which is gonna be very easy to get. You'll be running a lot of Slave Pens and Underbog while leveling. Time Warden's Leggings, also from Keepers of Time. The one reputation you want to get to Revered as quickly as possible as a prop paladin, it's not that hard, it only requires a couple of Black Morass, and hey, people will need that attunement done, is Keepers of Time. It will help you a great deal. I mean, plenty of people will need tanks to run them from Durnhold, and then in Black Morass. Getting Keepers of Time is tedious. I'm not going to deny that. I hate doing those dungeons over and over again just for the sake of rep, especially when you don't have a weapon. But you do get access to Continuum Blade and leggings and legs, and crucially the Helm enchant as well. So you have free reputation items. Then you have the drops, and when it comes to the drops, the Helm and the gloves are really good options for several reasons. The first one is Helm of the Righteous and Gauntlets of the Righteous are good choices because there is no helmet in the game that has avoidance. You're fine getting Helm of the Righteous, which is not the best survival item, but you're fine getting Helm of the Righteous because you're not losing as much as with some other pieces you can get. And it's a good, solid mana option, not fret. I'm not really concerned about fret here with the 2-set Righteous. I'm concerned about mana. Your abilities cost a lot of mana. You don't have a lot of intellect early on. The 2-set of Righteous is very strong for that. It will keep you going. One of the most important things for you as a tank is to just be able to keep pulling, but your abilities cost so much mana. You don't want to stop and drink if you can avoid it. Having a good stockpile of mana potions will absolutely help in this area as well, but also having this 2-set. With the gloves, Gauntlets of the Righteous are also a good choice because although there is one option that's better in terms of like survivability, or there's several options, there's only one set of gloves that has avoidance on them, and it's agility-based avoidance, which is not necessarily the best, and it's from Heroic Botanica. Heroic Botanica is not hard, but Heroic Botanica is not going to be achievable very quickly. It has one of the worst reputations to get to Revered with Shatar, which you'll practically start from friendly, if even that, when you're starting to get that reputation. You have to grind Mechanar, Botanica, Arcatraz over and over and over again. So Gauntlets of the Righteous, which drop from Shadowhold's normal, are a good choice. The Helm drops from Mechanar normal. You will want to do at least one Mechanar for the sake of the Arcatraz key quest, and you can get the Helm of the Righteous through that. Mechanar, not so much of a tedious dungeon, though you will be doing it multiple times. And the great thing about the Helm and the gloves is they pair up with the other items that you want as well. From Mechanar, you can get the Jade Skull Breastplate. It's not the best item in terms of pure stamina. It doesn't have any fret, but that block rating is really good for your Protection Paladin initially for the sake of the Crush Cap. Then you have Figurine of the Colossus from Shadowhold's normal. That's the great thing about this set. You have these combination of items from these dungeons that you either want to do or you can do and get multiple items from them that you can use. Shield is from Shadow Labyrinth normal, from the first boss. Plenty of people want that. Karazhan attunement. Ring can be a bit of an annoyance. Same with Cloak. Devil Shark Cape drops from the final boss of Steam Vaults normal. Something people need to do for Kara attunement, so not a problem there, but it can be annoying running that over and over again for this. But it's the best in slot Cloak for the sake of avoidance in the entire game. It's not just like, oh, pre-raid best. It's best for the entire game until you get into tier 5, until you can get the Alar Cloak or the Zulaman badge cloak. You will be using this. And then Ring is from Arcatraz normal from the final boss. Then finally, you have Goblin Rocket Launcher. This will probably be expensive. It does require Engineering 350. It does require Primal Fires. It can cost you an arm and a leg. It's not the most important item. It's just a stamina stick. And there are several of them available, but this one is easy to acquire in the sense that you can just level Engineering. Primals will be an absolute nightmare to buy, however, so just be aware of that. Then you have the only 2 items associated with heroics that you actually want to get early on. Like, I'd consider them an absolute necessity. You have Librum of Repentance, but that's only 15 badges of justice. That's not hard to farm. You know, just give it half a day, even less. Do a bunch of heroics. Do the easy heroics. You can get this. And then Shoulders. This is where things get a bit annoying, but Shoulders is lack of choices, really. Fanblade Pauldrons drop from Alkanai Crypt's Heroic. One of the easiest heroics in the game, so it's not a question of difficulty. It does require lower city revered, so that might be frustrating. But plenty of people want to do Alkanai Crypt's Heroics because it's very easy, first off. It's easy badges, it's easy Primal Nether. But crucially, it also has a bunch of items for pretty much everyone. Caster DPS, physical DPS, tanks, healers, doesn't matter. Everyone wants to do Alkanai Crypt's Heroic early on, and these shoulders are very easy to acquire, and they're the only shoulders in the game that have both sockets and avoidance. There's some shoulders that have avoidance, but they don't have those 2 sockets, and because of those sockets combined with avoidance, they are the best in slot pre-raid shoulders. You can use something else if you want to. There is another option in the Spalders of the Righteous from Botanica normal. Not a hard normal to do. Can absolutely smash it, especially as a prop paladin. Do some mega pulls there, especially if you have a priest to mind control and get the major spell power buff for yourself and your warlocks. Just absolutely destroy everything in your path. The problem with Spalders of the Righteous is you can do a lot of Botanica runs and never see them. At least that's been my situation. Maybe yours is better. Maybe you're the kind of guy who gets them on your first run. I've never been in that situation. To be fair, the shoulders that I've seen the most as a tank are Spalders of the Shoulder Guards of the Bold, and these might end up being the ones you actually use when you're doing your first Karazhan, because they're very, very easy, because they drop from Shadow Labyrinth normal, and they're very they seem to have a very high drop chance. But the ones you should aim for, if you, even as part of this gear set, are Fanblade Pauldrons. Good luck with that. Not everyone will have it. And with this gear set, you have 11.7k HP, 11.5k armor, Crush Cap, right? So this shows you the Crush Cap. It's Crush Cap and 229 spell damage. That's enough spell damage. If you have a spell, especially if you have a spell power totem, if you have Wizard Oil, maybe if you're using a flask, a Supreme Power Flask, maybe if you get lucky and get the Blinding Light one. But flask shouldn't be necessary. Even with just the spell power totem or just a Wizard Oil, you should be able to keep aggro against fully geared DPS or full tier 3 geared DPSers. But that's the cheap option. The Endurance tier, I just want to go over this before moving on. Endurance tier is one of the best items you can get early on because it has, although it doesn't have any stamina, it has so much avoidance. It's a major help for the sake of your Crush Cap. Same with Figurine of the Colossus. But what if you do have time? What if you do have resources? What if you do have a lot of gold? What should you aim for? Well, in that case, I would go for something like this. If you have the time. And if you have, especially with pre-patch or after launch, if you have the time to farm, if you have gold lying around. I mean, obviously, the most expensive thing for you will be the gems, will be the enchants. Well, if you do have the time, these are the kind of items you should aim for. So over here, no change whatsoever, just shoulder enchant, the gem enchant gone from for agility, which is a blue gem, to a dodge rating stamina gem, which drops from heroic. I believe, if I look over this, yeah, this is from Shadow Labyrinth heroic that you can get the Regal Tanzanite, and you should aim for it because it's a pretty good gem to get. But otherwise, no major changes in terms of this side. On the right side, you do have Girdle of the Valorous Deeds, which drops from Black Morass Heroic from the final boss. Pretty solid drop chance, and it's actually a really good belt because it has just as much towards the crush cap as the other option, as the quest reward, and even close enough to Crimson Girdle of the Indomitable, which drops from Morose. So you compare it with Shatari, it doesn't have quite as much block rating. It has more defense, less block rating, no block value, but has that 20 spell damage, which is really useful. And then the boots, you may not want to use these boots. You may want to keep the Flesh Beast Metal Greaves. But these boots, Shadowhold's Heroic, pretty difficult heroic to be clear, but people may want to clear it. Most people will probably be fine just keeping the Flesh Beast Metal Greaves. But if you have the time, if you have the group, if you have the willingness, go for these. They can be good as a reasonable enough threat option, I'd say. Because there are some unreasonable, absolutely unreasonable threat options. Rings stayed the same, pants stayed the same, Tywardens are best in slot pre-raid. Trinket, Styling Scarab is actually worth more. Yes, more than Figurine of the Colossus. You will get more towards your crush cap from Styling because although it has less block rating, it has that 20 defense, and that more than makes up the difference. This is a really good item. If there is any item you want to have coming in from vanilla that I would consider absolutely mandatory, it is this Trinket. Nothing else really matters. Maybe Thunder Fury. I personally don't have one to test on the beta, so I can't really tell you how good that is. But outside of that, this is the one item you absolutely want to have as a prop paladin coming in from vanilla to Burning Crusade. Rocket Launcher stays the same. Libra of Repent stays the same. Bracers of the Green Fortress, crafted, not too ridiculously expensive. Finding someone the recipe and the nether is going to be more difficult, but you may spend, what, 600 gold, and that's including the enchant, 600, 700, maybe like 1,000 gold to get these. But these are best in slot for you until maybe tier 6, really. Yeah, they're that good for the sake of your survivability, and no, I would not trade them with anything else with Fret Bracers. You just get you just get so much survivability from these, and the dodge rating is worth it as well. Weapon, Gavel of Unearthed Secrets is currently the best in slot pre-raid weapon in the game currently, based on testing so far in the beta. This may change. Now, I've never been a big fan of Gavel of Unearthed Secrets. In fact, I did a whole video talking about how you really should go for Continuum Blade. But hey, if you want a luxury item, this is your luxury item. It's better, it has more spell damage, it does more threat at the moment. That may change. And it also makes using Seal of Vengeance viable. Using Seal of Vengeance is not worth it with a slow weapon, and honestly, even with this weapon, it's not worth it unless you're dealing with a boss and you have the time to stack it. On trash, absolutely don't use Seal of Vengeance, just something worth saying. Shield, Azure Shield of the Caldara, which is from Badges of Justice. 33 Badges of Justice. Get this over the Crest of the Shattar. A lot of people would say, oh, Crest of the Shattar, but it has less armor, 200 less armor. And although stamina is better than armor, in this case, because of the higher defense rating, because of the higher block value, because of the higher armor, it's worth going for Azure Shield of the Caldara versus Crest of the Shattar. Because with Crest of the Shattar, sure, you can get maybe more stamina, but you may struggle with defense, and you don't want to be in that kind of position, really. So that dodge rating may be useful in some circumstances. And with this, 12k HP almost, 13k armor, crush cap, and 315 spell damage. You can tank any boss in the game with this gear, including Nightbane and Prince, Depends on your healers. It will depend on your healers even if you have full tier 4 best in slot. But you can tank any boss in the game, anything in the game with this kind of gear set. You will survive it. Maybe you need to use stone shields or iron shields if you can get access to those, but you will be able to handle things. Now, in terms of raid gearing, first off, survivability. And this, you may not use all of these, and certainly you won't use all of them constantly, but these are the kind of items you should aim for your survival gear set. There are still going to be situations where you might want to use it, and these are very strong survival items. Now, some of these things are very easy to understand because some of them are just natural upgrades to what you have, like tier, helm, shoulders, chest piece, nothing really to talk about there. Same cloak, barbed choker of discipline, which is just an upgraded version of the strength of the Untame. No explanation really required. Same bracers, belt from Morose, gloves from Maiden, pants from Curator. These 3 items are very strong for the sake of your survivability. The gloves in particular are extremely powerful in terms of helping you with both your HP and your crush cap. If there's an item in Karazhan that that's not a tier piece, I would prioritize over anything else. It's not the pants or the boots or the belt, it's these gloves. Like, if you want to have an argument with your raid leader, if you want to put your foot down and you want to insist that you get the piece over anyone else, it's got to be these gloves. They are that powerful. They are going to be that important for you as a prop paladin. You may not use them all the time, but for a very long time, you are going to struggle with that crush cap, and you will have to make gear sacrifices to maintain that crush cap. And these gloves help you a lot with that. It cannot be understated. With belt, yeah, natural upgrade compared to what you have pre-raid. Pants, same idea. Boots is a bit of a mixed one. I mean, you can use Boots of the Righteous Path for Fret, of course, or you can go with Boots of Illusion if you just care about pure crush cap. Personally, at this point, with this kind of gearing, you can get enough avoidance from other pieces that you can make do with the Battle Scar boots. I mean, parry rating isn't the greatest thing in the world, but the extra stamina that Battle Scar boots can give you is worth it in my books. Ring, the Reputation ring, along with Elementium Band of the Century. Morose Lucky Pocket Watch. This is pretty powerful. It's powerful for two reasons. It will help keep you alive compared to Styline or Figurine. And it's one of the most powerful trinkets in the game. You can use this all the way until Sunwell Plateau, even in Sunwell Plateau, though some people might argue on that. Personally, I think there's always a usage for a Morose Lucky Pocket Watch. It's a very powerful survival trinket. Most of the time as a tank, you can use 2 stamina trinkets if you so want to. It depends on the situation. Like, there's times when you want to use an avoidance trinket like this, or there's times when you want to use 2 stamina trinkets, or 1 fret trinket, or 2 fret trinkets. The main reason I'm listing it here with the Goblin Rocket Launcher is I think it's something you should have in your inventory, even if you're not going to use it on everything. No tank is going to use this on everything. It's always situational. Trinkets are always going to be situational for any tank. Weapon-wise and shield-wise, well, shield is not even a discussion. The Gruul Shield, best in slot until tier 6. And weapon, Gladiator's Gavel. So, Gladiator's Gavel is going to cost you an arm and a leg in terms of arena points. It shouldn't require rating or any title. All you need to do is just get those arena points. 3,000 arena points. That's gonna be fun. No, it won't. Get used to the idea. Maybe get the Shotgun spec. That might work out. But Gladiator's Gavel is the best in slot weapon for Protection Paladin. This is a Season 1 version. The Season 2, best in slot as well. The reason it has high stamina, good intellect, good spell damage, and it also has that resilience rating. Why does that matter? Well, as prop paladins, we care a lot about having a spell power weapon. But there's no weapon in the game except arena ones that have any kind of defensive stat on them. Like, the arena weapons, they have resilience on them, right? The PvP weapons have resilience on them. And why does resilience matter? I mean, surely you will have enough defense, even without it to be crit immune. Absolutely. until you get into the nitty-gritty in Tier 5 and in Tier 6 about resistance gear, frost resistance, nature resistance, maybe arcane resistance, fire resistance gearing. Hell, you might even care about fire resistance in Tier 4, depending on how Nightbane ends up being in the final version. And Gladiator's Gavel's resilience can help with that. Most importantly, really, it just has the best stats of any weapon in the game that you can acquire. And yes, I know doing Arena is an annoying fucking affair. I've hated it myself. I hated it when I did this on retail, when I had to farm for this weapon on retail. I absolutely despised it. But it is the best weapon, and you should absolutely get it. Your second option is Blood Maw Magus Blade. And enjoy! Enjoy! There's no other option that's even close to these two weapons, so enjoy. If you're not going to do the Arena, enjoy getting into an argument with every Warlock and every Mage in your guild. It will be the Hunger Games for Blood Maw in Phase 1. You can, I guess, win out because tank prior, but we'll see about that. But anyway, this is for the sake of survivability. What about Fret? What should you aim for Fret? Well, when it comes to Fret, it depends on how much it matters, and it varies dependent on the situation. Some bosses, you can go balls to the wall with Fret. With Trash, some of it will hit really hard, others won't, right? So it really depends on the situation. And having multiple gear sets is important as a tank. But if you're interested in maximizing your Fret, this is such an option. Now, you keep many of the same pieces, but you also switch out some critical ones for the sake of extra Fret. And I'll explain here why. Like the belt, yeah, you lose the sockets, you lose quite a bit of stamina, but you gain 20 spell power. Boots, yeah, you lose some avoidance and maybe some stamina, but it's not necessarily the biggest deal in the world. Trinket, Icon of the Silver Crescent is the best Fret trinket you can get in Phase 1. No discussion, just get it from Badges of Justice. Maybe you can use, if you're a jewel crafter, you can use the figurine of the living ruby serpent. That's what I aim to do. I'm going to go engineering and jewel crafting. I won't have the spell damage ring enchants, but that's my decision. I feel enchanting is a really good choice for a lot of prop paladins, just worth knowing that. And engineering, I would say, is a must-have, by the way. But anyway, for trinkets, Icon of the Silver Crescent is a must-have. Second trinket option, either, you can even go with the Scryer Exalted one if you so desire. If I were to find the tier, I guess it's not showing up. But there are some other options, but if you're going for Fret, you absolutely want to use Icon. Maybe the Mag Trinket, depends on how that works. Maybe, I'm not quite sure about it. And ring-wise, Spectral Band of Innervation, which drops from Atumen the Huntsman. It has good stamina, has decent spell damage. Certainly a good piece for the sake of Fret. Cloak-wise, Sergeant's Heavy Cape, good stamina, resilience, and spell damage and healing. So a good Fret cloak. Or if you absolutely want to go completely nuts on with respect to Fret, there is another option that drops from Karazhan. If I can get it here. Oh, I can't. Oh, there we go. And it's Drape of the Righteous, which is 43 holy spell damage. This is the ultimate item if you just don't give a crap about your survivability in any way. If you do care about your survivability, yeah, Sergeant's Heavy Cape is a more reasonable choice for the sake of Fret Cloak. And the big controversy here would obviously be about the chest piece and about the gloves. Now, with gloves, well, with gloves and with the chest, yes, tier 4 chest and the maiden gloves are great survival pieces, and the chest is also a good Fret piece. But I would not necessarily want to sacrifice the helm, and I would not want to sacrifice the shoulders necessarily. So it's gloves and chest piece, and I certainly don't want to sacrifice the legs either. And the reason is mana with this kind of gear set will be a problem, a major problem. And so sacrificing those pieces for the 2 set of Righteous is the play if you care to maximize your Fret, because or if you care to maximize your mana output, which is gonna matter in these kind of situations. With this gear set, you have 13.4k HP, 15k armor, 500 spell damage. That's more than enough spell damage, especially when you're counting the fact that flask is 80, food is 20, oil is 40, spell damage totem is 100. With this kind of gear, there is no DPSer. Even if they're doing over 2k DPS, there's no DPSer that can take aggro off you. Now, the problem with this gear set, of course, is that it doesn't have the crush cap, right? So it's 15% off. Well, why is it 15% off? Because I switched the Librum to Librum of Eternal Rest. This drops from Cephalic Holds normal, very easy to get. You need to do Cephalic Holds normal for the sake of the Shadow Labyrinth key, not a big problem. You can swap that back to Librum of Repentance if you care about the crush cap. And Librum is the first thing that you should swap back if you're interested about the crush cap. So going with Librum of Repentance. So do that. Suddenly 10.42%. Okay, how do we gain 10% back? Well, we can swap the cloak, and that drops us to 8% over there. And we can also swap the Goblin rocket launcher with Stylene. We're almost there, just 3.72%. And beyond that, I think it's just gonna be cheating, because that's what Andorra Mustier allows you to do. It allows you to cheat, right? These are some choices. Or actually, you can just keep using, I believe you can keep using Spectral Band of Innervation. You can keep using Spectral Band of Innervation, and you're not quite crush capped with Spectral Band, though it's worth knowing something about it. You do get some avoidance from Mark of the Wild, and you do get some avoidance from Kings. So if you have those, you will be fine, right? You'll almost always want to have Kings. Mark of the Wild, you want to have a Druid even for 10 man. It's going to matter. If you don't have a Druid, yeah, obviously you can use any of the survival rings like Elementium Band of the Sentry to achieve that crush cap. Lose a bit more fret. But even 451, right? This has crush cap, 12.3k 12.3k HP, 14.7k armor. You know, you're not going to die against any boss with this kind of gear, right? You're going to be able to tank Prince. Should be able to tank Prince. Might be a bit, it depends a bit on the RNG. Should be able to tank most everything, and you will hold aggro just fine against everything else. Or you can drop 2 set Righteous, and you can go with Justicard Chest, and you can go Maiden Gloves. You have a bunch of options. That's the thing about Fret gearing. You always have a bunch of options, and it depends how big is Fret concern versus my survivability. And this brings me back to my initial point. Your survivability is going to be your first and foremost concern, then your Fret is going to be your concern once people get gear. Costin here signing out. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and enable notifications, and stay tuned for more.